For the record, those present in the meeting is myself, Commissioner Santos, Commissioner Santos, and Commissioner Jim Chavez is on the meeting via GoToMeeting. Okay?
That's just background noise.
Still on mute. Mike, can you please mute?
Thank you. Okay, so this is a work session for GWA. Miguel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would you like to go straight into the...
We'll go straight to the
issues for decision?
Yep.
So we have 4 items on the agenda. The last item is a joint resolution with PA, which I believe they are going to present at their work session.
Okay.
And then the last amendment 2 on our agenda, we'd like to table.
Okay. What are those?
One is for additional funding for pressure zone realignment. We're trying to see if that can be avoided.
Okay.
And then the other one is relative to, in addition to the Northern District wastewater treatment plant for a fats, oil, and grease receiving station. We're still negotiating costs on that, and I want to get the cost tightened up before we present.
Okay. Good. Okay, so let's
So
go with
the issue for the only resolution we have before you this morning is Resolution 13 FY 2024, and this is seeking an increase in funding for the design contract for the Central Gwa Ws reservoirs, which was, if you recall, when we had the PFAS issue with wells 823 and 825, we had utilized this contract to do the design work for these wells since they feed into the Agana Heights Reservoir directly. However, after we completed the design, we were just ready to go out to bid. There was an auto accident which took out a portion of one of the wells facilities, including the electrical panels and the chlorination. Yeah, the one in Agana on the curve going up the hill to Cinnamon.
Those are a while back.
Yeah, but
Now you're gonna.
because we had, the original design did not touch the electrical issues of the electrical controls so much as focused on the treatment system that was added and the piping that was required to connect the 2 wells. With this this accident took out our ability to operate the well. Now, rather than handle it as a change order during construction, we want to revise the design before it goes out to bid.
to make it a complete design.
So essentially, we're going to upgrade the electrical controls on both wells, make sure the SCADA is up to date, put in a generator and an ATS, and then rehab the chlorination systems for both, since one got taken out. So the additional design work that is required for this is estimated to be around $79,000, and we're seeking an additional funding to include contingencies in the amount of $100,000 just to take care of this last thing. I don't know what cost recovery there might be for insurance yet.
On the accident?
On the accident, but we're intending to use as a funding source bond CIP line item PW 0902 and other bonds or grants that may be available for us.
Commissioner Santos.
Mr. Bedalia, can you please acknowledge our guest
Oh, I'm
from the
sorry.
CP?
No, go ahead.
Sir, joining us this morning is Tom Connor with Region 9 EPA, our project officer for GWO.
Welcome, Tom.
He's the enforcer.
The enforcer, yes.
He's a nice one.
He's a nice enforcer.
He's a nice enforcer.
We work well,
Firm but fair.
and we have the same goal. We want
Welcome.
to do well. Okay, so my question, the question I have to you is, you're going to, now these 2 wells are affected by PFAS.
Yes.
And so you're going to design a system to deal with the PFAS, is that it?
That's already been designed,
That's already been designed?
but
Okay.
before we put it out to bid, because the well
Got it.
was damaged,
Yeah.
and we need to now upgrade the electrical and the chlorination system, we want to get that design work
Okay.
done, incorporated into the bid package, so once we put it out, it's a complete
Okay.
bid.
How long do you think this process is going to take before you bring those 2 wells back? Just rough estimate.
Probably 2 years,
2 years?
1.5 to 2 years to get everything done and
Because
incorporate.
right now you're still in the design phase,
Right.
and then you have to go out to construction, and that takes time. Then you get a contractor on board, and then you launch. Okay, very good, thank you. Any questions?
Just one
Commissioner
question, Miguel, so on these facilities, do we have anything like a bumper guard? Something to protect, you know?
Martinez? Our asset?
This was a concrete building.
Oh, really?
They took out the fence and the concrete building. There was
It
a
was
concrete
bad.
wall.
The guy died in the accident.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so the building was the bumper.
But you know, Commissioner Martinez brings up a good point, Miguel. You know, guardrails really do help. Guardrails help, they absorb the impact, and so,
We'll coordinate with DPW to see if we can incorporate that into the revisions
because I.
and get them to pay for it.
Yes, no, it should be that, no, it should be that, because it's a road safety thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, really, I'll tell you that in Zoltan, the guardrails are always getting hit, but they're saving lives, because the people don't hit the concrete poles. Concrete poles happen to be behind the guardrails on Route 4 going up to Zoltan. And so they get messed up really bad. I mean, you know, my wife looked at me when we were driving by, and said, what the heck happened? I said, somebody hit the guardrail. But thank God it stopped, you know, as the guardrail was really ripped up and came up, but it held.
I heard some of our concrete poles actually jumped into the road, hit the car, and then jumped.
No,
jumped
no.
back. That's what Mark
No,
Forbes.
listen.
That's what Mark Forbes used to always say. Let me guess, the pole jump was in the road. You know, people have to drive more carefully.
You know, well, that plus, you know, those guardrails can save lives because if you hit a concrete pole, you die. Anything concrete, it's not moving. Anyway, so any other questions for Miguel?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. That being the only issue for decision, we can move into management report.
Yes.
But I will ask if we can defer presentation on the financials until the board meeting. We still
Sure.
need to tighten some stuff up.
Okay.
But we do have information on the refunding that the CFO can share
Sure.
with you. So just for, the management report, for water production for the month of February, deep wells, average daily production was 36.4 MGD, 0.18 from the spring, 0.18 MGD for the springs, 1.8 MGD from the Ugam surface water treatment plant, and Tuman Maui at just about 1 million gallons a day for a total of 39.3 average MGD for the month of February. We had 97 wells on active status, 1 on standby, 11 with grounded motors, and then of course we have the 10 down hard for CIP. 11 down hard for CIP. So monthly production was slightly lower than January of 2024. The next slide just shows Tuman Maui wells production hovering right around 1 MGD. On the distribution side, our water booster pumps, the total of 30 pump stations operating at 92.6% operability, with the northern pump stations at 88.2, southern at 100, and central at 93.3% operability for all pumps within the pump stations. On the tank levels, you can see that we've had some issues maintaining levels in our northern reservoirs. Southern reservoirs are right where they should be, right around averaging 50%. But the northern reservoirs have been low. We've been struggling to keep the levels up with the issues we've been having with intermittent interruptions to the production facilities. This hit us hard at the end of February going into March, so for a full week last week, we had one area completely out of water because we could not get production levels back up for the Istanbul area. About 27 homes were affected. We did issue a precautionary boil water notice both for Mount Santa Rosa for a couple days and then for the Chalampalawan area in Istanbul. And those areas have since been restored, and Guam EPA has concurred with the lifting of the precautionary boil water notice. no positive results for any contaminants. Everything was negative. Chlorine residuals remained where they should be. So the water was always safe, but we just, as a precaution, because of the extended outage, issued that notice. On wastewater collections, the pump stations, 84 total pump stations operating at 82.3 operability, 75% northern, 85% central, and 85% in the south. We are also experiencing issues with motors needing replacement at the sewer pump stations because of some of these issues. So that continues to be a challenge for us. And as I mentioned, Mr. Chair, in our conversation earlier in the week, we may need some extraordinary measures to replace the inventory that we've been burning up in terms of the deep well pumps and motors. So that will be coming before you as soon as I can get it packaged.
What's John B. saying about power quality to your system? I mean, that's part of the headache, right?
It is, and he's aware. I'm not exactly sure what happened last week. We understand that there was load shifting that caused some voltage imbalance between the three phases that enter the service to some of these wells, and in particular the F-series and D-series wells were hit hard, but we also had some issues with a couple of the large producers up north, HGC2 and AG2A, both being out of service for quite some time due to the imbalance. We finally got them back online. We had lost Santa Rosa, and that's the reason we lose levels in the tank. It takes a long time to rebuild those levels. And so we're still struggling with that, and hopefully we can keep things stable heading into the next month.
And then you're anticipating you might need some CapEx money or repair R&M
Just
money?
replace inventory, yeah.
Okay. And
So
next month or something, they'll bring it to us, or what, Tuesday?
As soon as I figure it out. I don't think it'll be by Tuesday.
Okay, soon.
so you don't rewind the motors when they
The
run out?
deep well ones, no.
They just replace them?
Sorry, also on the wastewater collection system for our cleaning and CCTV for the month of February, we were slightly below target, but we had a surplus last month, so overall we're still okay. We had 3.33 miles done out of 4.87 that needed to be done this month. But last month we were 2.5 miles over what was required, so we should be fine. For wastewater treatment, the Hagåtña, Northern, and Agate Santa Rita plants combined put out about 1 million pounds of biosolids, which were disposed of at the Luzon landfill at a cost of $98,000. Flows, all combined flows were a touch under 10 mgd for all plants, all facilities. Which shows a decreasing trend since October. So as we're heading into the dry season, we're seeing our flows react correspondingly. So we anticipate we'll hold this until the rain picks up, and then we'll see some increases. For asset management, through February of 2024, our ratio of preventive maintenance to corrective maintenance work orders is 76% preventive and 24% corrective. Completion ratios on all of that is for corrective maintenance, 94% of those work orders were completed, and for preventive maintenance, 90%. For work orders, leak repair, for corrective maintenance work orders, leak repairs versus equipment repairs, the leak repair work orders were 53% of total, and equipment repair 47% of total. And out of those percentages, the completion rates for leak repairs were 99%, and for equipment repairs 94%. On our One Guam update, no movement on any licenses or property transfers for easements. For the other issues that we have, there was a request to restore service to the GPA substation across from Micronesia Mall. That was being serviced by a Navy water connection because they have their line right there. I don't know if that's historically where it was, but in any event, at some point, DZSP disconnected that line, and so we're currently working to try to get that reconnected for GPA. On other issues, we continue to coordinate with the Navy on looking at treatment solutions for PFAS. We are proceeding with bench scale testing of some alternative treatment technologies different from what we're currently using with the granular activated carbon. So we are in the process of collecting those samples. We intend to submit 2 sets of samples, one from our sources and one from Navy sources, to evaluate the feasibility of utilizing that technology for the treatment of water that may be impacted by PFAS. We're also trying to work out some encroachment issues near Eagles Field on Route 15 with one of the pressure control stations that was installed. The contractor apparently didn't do a great job with the survey, and we have a slight encroachment that we're trying to work out with the Navy. I think it's less than a couple feet over the line. And then other issues, we are currently working on interties with resurrecting the Santa Rosa Reservoir intertie. If you recall, we had proposed an interconnection of the reservoir, since they're right next to each other, as a proposed interoperability opportunity. At that time, the Air Force had not made a decision, but we needed to proceed, so we built out up to the fence line, and so now they're considering what needs to be done to meet us and then make those connections. So we're still evaluating that, as well as some other emergency response issues. 2 other items to note just on the One Guam update. We are continuing to work. The CFO is leading negotiations on revised utility service agreement. So we expect to finish that in May and then have something ready for signature in June. So we're reviewing the documents.
Is this for the wastewater service we
It's
provide them?
It's for both.
And
And the water we
the
purchase.
water we work together with? Okay, yeah, that's gonna lower their price.
On an added note, the issue that you asked me about yesterday with regard to return Navy property, that parcel, the Schofield Heights area, was returned with only a reservation for sewer, but not a reservation for any water infrastructure. So the sewer reservation was expressly for the Navy. So, but the facilities, the property was returned to private landowners. And so we get, there is a master meter for water that goes into that property that we get charged for, and then we bill at flat rates because there's no metering infrastructure on the private property. There's no easements in the private property for us, public easements for us to install any infrastructure. So
There's no way for us to even put a meter on it?
not at
We
the,
haven't
not,
solved
not at the point of use. So we're using flat rates because we don't have any rights to enter and to maintain any infrastructure, and we don't own any of the infrastructure on that private property, neither sewer nor water.
Yeah, this has to do with, when the return of land that originally was not supposed to be returned to original landowners. In this one area, well, in all the areas, it has been returned. But we have a situation where it's our customer, but Miguel's paying the Navy for the water, and the infrastructure is leaking into the customer's meter area. Now we don't even have a meter there. So it's a funky, it's a Santa Rosa, the Leon, Carlotta, Leon Grove, that
The
area.
Schofield Heights outside of
Yeah,
Naval
Schofield
Magazine.
House or Schofield Heights, however you say it.
On the, as
If you're
on
going
the
towards
left,
Naval Magazine,
On the left.
it's on the left.
Yeah.
because they own the property on the top.
Right, so all the families have moved back, but it's created this funky situation where it's our customer, but not really our infrastructure, right?
Not our infrastructure.
And so when there's a leak, Navy says, call GWA, GWA says it's not ours. Is it something we can, I think in the long term, we want to kind of take that over. I don't know.
We
It's a little
don't-
complicated, I understand
We
that.
don't want to take over any infrastructure that is beyond its useful life, and the Navy is not, on the water side, the Navy,
Could care
to my
less.
understanding, is not gonna, they don't have a reservation of anything, so they're not going to be able to give us anything.
Well, so who owns the land? Who owns that infrastructure?
The private landowner.
Okay,
But, okay, so we don't have a meter?
There is a master meter
Okay.
from the Navy connection
that area,
Into that area,
into that area,
and then everyone's being billed on a flat
flat rate.
off of that master meter?
flat rate, no consumption, no volume charges. It's
Okay, wait.
estimated.
But, at some point, don't we have the right to say to the customer, do you want service? If you're going to have service, we need to upgrade this infrastructure, and we need easements.
But they don't have it either.
Well,
That's the problem.
if there was to be,
This customer doesn't have it.
if this was property that was being privately developed, then we would expect that the private developer, if he subdivided his property, would put in the appropriate infrastructure, and then we would assume it. But it would have to meet our standards.
Right.
In this case, they have infrastructure.
That doesn't meet our standards.
Doesn't, we don't know what condition it's in, we haven't done any
It's just
assessment.
not ours to touch.
But it's very likely old ACP pipe that we would not want to assume
Yeah.
because it's leaking.
I-
But it's leaking right now, apparently, and it is an issue, so it does need to be addressed. But the return of these properties without parceling out easements for access to utilities and proper service and maintenance creates a headache that we're having to deal with, not just here, but in other areas as well.
I know, I remember Nimitz Hill or something.
Do we have a strategy or
No,
with the
that's
chair?
what I'm
Yeah,
getting
what-
to.
what-
Yeah,
what
I mean,
you're
at some
thinking.
point, some of these lots that were returned was the big lot, and it was just returned. They weren't subdivided lots, right?
Correct.
So at some point, we should say, if you want, we're gonna cut service, because we can't maintain this infrastructure, we can't touch it, we're leaking water, and, you
Yeah,
know.
but that's gonna, I mean, you're gonna abandon, so how are those people gonna get water?
No,
Because
no,
the
no,
neighbor's
no,
not
no,
gonna
no,
touch it either.
No, here's my point. We need to tell them that we need to, at some point, we're gonna have to cut that off. But we want to work with them. If they will subdivide their property and create easements, can't they
I
subdivide
think
their
that
property?
the discussions to date have been for the family to figure out how they're going to provide access easements.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, and so I think we've asked for that, we've not gotten anything, so we continue to service because we don't want them to be without these
I
essential
understand
utilities.
that, but that can't go over.
No, I understand,
far-
sir,
far.
but we're giving-
We need to tell them that at some point, we can give them a period of time to try and get their act together and work it out, but we can't continue on, because the AC pipes are just gonna go.
So let us
No, I-
develop a proposed policy to give to you, and then
Yes.
at that point, we'll lay out what
Yeah.
the.
I mean, and people have to understand that, okay, if it's an AC pipe, it's going to completely go at some point, which means they won't get any water anyway. Because the water will leak out, they won't have pressure.
I think the bigger issue is because of the uncertainty of actually, technically, who owns the, we don't have an easement on the GWA side, so we don't go onto anybody's property without an easement. Right? And yet there's our customers getting flat rate because they're using infrastructure built by the Navy. Navy says, I ain't gonna fix it, I gave it to you
I
guys.
get all of that.
So I think we're saying the same thing. Miguel's gonna figure out a strategy. He's inherited a headache, an easement headache, but ultimately it's our customers, and then who pays for the upgraded infrastructure? Does GWA do it? Does the families do it? I mean, that's why I look.
Maybe
let
the
Miguel
question
figure
we
it out.
should be asking, Commissioner, is what does the family want? They obviously want us to do something.
want
What are they
water.
willing to give up?
They-
They have to give up
I think they're
easement,
willing to
otherwise.
grant easements, but I don't think they have clear easements from the Navy. That's my understanding, right?
No.
They own the whole thing.
There's
Right.
no easement.
So they can just grant an easement, right?
Yeah, they can cut it
Oh,
off
then
anywhere they
then
want.
let's
So I
have
mean
it.
that.
Okay, so.
So the discussion should be with the family, right? And obviously. if you
It
want-
has been, it
Okay.
has been, they just
So-
have not been, not given us any ability
No
to
movement,
access
no movement
the
on it.
property.
Okay,
Then-
well, time to
then-
tell. This is what it's gonna take.
Quite frankly, you can sit on this until, but at some point, I
Until there's
think
no
we,
service.
the water
Yeah, but the water's
doesn't go.
leaking in the
Right.
meantime.
I get that.
So I think it's incumbent on them to say, hey, we want help.
We'll propose
Okay,
something to
yeah.
you.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I think he's sorting it out.
Because this is
I mean,
not.
It's a
unique
common
to the-
headache.
It's
Well-
common
Yeah,
headache.
yeah, Miguel,
I mean,
Miguel
let me
gets
ask,
it.
well, here's the question, Miguel. You don't need us to do anything at this point because it's operational. At least that's my interpretation.
Yeah.
There's not a policy issue on behalf of the CCU to,
Yeah, landowners
Well,
grant easements, that's their
you're
job.
right.
I think that we might need some guidance on how to address, because this is a unique situation which isn't necessarily covered by or contemplated by anything in our current rules.
Okay.
okay,
So-
okay.
Okay,
So
I'd
I
like
got
to
it, got
just
it.
sort it out,
Yeah.
figure it
Come
Yeah.
back with a
out.
proposal, yeah,
And
yeah.
Okay, got it.
we have an approach that we've taken in other areas that so far seems to be better serving us, but in this area, it might not be applicable. So let me work that out and then I'll make some recommendations.
Fine, yeah, I'm just,
I'm
I don't wanna be stepping on something that we don't really, today, I don't see us
Yeah,
being in charge of this, right? It's an operational issue for Miguel to
That
kind of sort
has
out.
crossed my
So,
mind.
Miguel.
The only
Yes,
issue is
sir.
that we know who the families are, and they're gonna talk to us.
So Miguel,
Got it, okay.
the way
that'll
this
be in the
works is you're gonna have to sometime, at some point, adjust your service rules and policies, and that's when you come to us and say, this is what we're going to address.
I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah,
Once
okay,
he-
good.
Once he figures it out, because it's a little messy, but.
You know, the only thing is,
That's
I
a big
really
argument.
hope that the families who get property back from the military, I wish they would understand that we want to provide them service, but we can't provide them service unless they help us by giving us a way to provide them service. And you know, long term, those asbestos concrete pipes are gonna go.
They're going down.
They're going
Because
down,
it's leaking.
and so their service will be great
Things leaking there.
at some point.
I just got
Okay.
the morning update from Ken Leon Burrow. Is
Yeah.
that, Miguel sent,
Candidate.
he sent somebody out, they looked at it, but then it's filling up.
Okay, come on, let's,
Okay.
Moving on.
Moving on.
We'll figure it out.
No changes to the court order summary. We're still at 98% complete, and we will be that way until we finish the last of the reservoirs. There were 4 SSOs that were reported in the month of February, 2 of which related to equipment issues at pump stations, the Harmon and Mamahana pump station, and then 2 of which related to the presence of fog in the collection system. On land issues, we did have some movement from DLM on trying to advance our request for land registration for the Estumbo Reservoir property. There has been no movement from the AG's office, so they're requesting that we send a letter. So we'll work with legal counsel to get that done. And then for Ugam River, we have started doing some survey work to resolve the access to the intake booster pump station, or intake pump station rather. Moving on to our leak repair summary. 298 leaks repaired for the month of February, and we ended the month slightly under 20 outstanding work orders. But we did peak up to 35, a backlog of 35 during the middle of the month.
Thanks, Miguel. For active residential accounts receivable, we had a slight increase, about $8,000 over the previous month, but a decrease in the number of accounts delinquent by 89. We're still trying to get back to as far as the accounts go, the pre-typhoon level. So you can see there was a bump right after the typhoon and the number of accounts that went delinquent, slowly coming down, but not yet to pre-typhoon levels. For commercial accounts, there was a slight decrease, around 10,000 for the month. 13 additional accounts went delinquent. Similarly, still trying to get back to pre-typhoon levels there, but in general, it's much better than the COVID, pre-COVID and after COVID times. For customer care section, the major highlights were wait times at the 3 locations were down to about 3.4 minutes per visit compared to 4 minutes the previous month. February average number of active pay plans had a slight decrease to 367, down from 396. Meter reading unit reported 98.6% successful readings, electronic readings, compared to slightly less, 96.1 the previous month. And we have 12.3% of GWA's active customers were recording leaks on the private side in February compared to January, which was a little bit higher, 12.9%.
Okay, Commissioner Sanchez.
Chris, can you talk about our famous $1 million settlement with DOE and what happened and
Sure.
what the adjustments were?
Yeah, so back in January, after extensive analysis of the account and everything that had transpired, we had the meter tested. It didn't pass. However, we had observed some pretty severe leaks throughout several different visits to the site during that period. So the total disputed bill was $2,097,798. We ended up crediting DOE 1.695 million of the 2 million. So the bill that stuck was about 402,789.
Was there a reason, or was, I mean, that's a big number to credit. Was the meter down for a long time, or we didn't notice, or I'm trying to just piece the before part, right? The meter was they were getting water, but the meter was not accurately
Correct.
measured. It was over reading the amount of water?
And during there were active 24-hour continuous flow flags that were being on the bill and notices that were being sent. So there was observed leakage. In the
Even though
run-up-
the meter wasn't working
This
right?
was back prior to the typhoon. So when we met with the governor's cabinet with respect to preparing for the storm, I asked specifically about the shelters and what schools were going to be used. And for that particular facility, they said they were planning on using it as a shelter, and I brought up the fact that we've seen continuous leakage. There's issues with the on-site piping and the water supply. You might want to reconsider that or take care of the leakage, as we've been, advising them on the bills.
At that time, was the meter considered accurate? 'Cause-
There was no dispute at that time.
Oh, okay.
So we did send the crews out of the abundance of caution, see what could be done to find any obvious leaks and take care of it prior to the storm. The crew went out, they did find several locations where fixtures were actively leaking, right? And it was running through their and just back out through the sewer. And those station was on our records for observed leaks, estimated volumes, and that was the data that was used to try and reconcile what we were seeing after the dispute came and the meter was tested. So rather than wiping out the entire thing because of a failed meter, we documented what we could based on our actual field observations and estimates of volume used, and reached a reasonable conclusion on what their leakage consumption could be justified, and that's what ended up being.
So we saw active leaks, which made us think that the meter read was, at that time, was accurate, right? And we're sending out the notices as we always do. But now we found that the meter was not accurate. So you kind of just had to make a business decision. You had to kind of
And
resolve it so we
there
could move
was
forward.
there was
right?
another intervening factor. When the meter was changed out after the dispute was reported, as it was being transported back to the meter shop, it became unsecured from the transport and
Fill over.
rolled around and got damaged. So that created a problem for a while. We couldn't test it, and then we made some replacements of parts, and then we tested the meter. But there's still, I'm not 100% certain, or could not be 100% certain, that the damage in transport is what caused the failure on the test.
On a going forward basis, though, we feel comfortable now. It's got a good meter. We're watching it, and you've resolved that, and we'll just move on.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I agree. So, you replaced meter then, right? With a
Yes.
Different meter, brand
Yes.
new meter? Okay.
And I think there was still
How-
leakage.
how-
Yeah, so that's consistent.
Okay, so how long ago did you replace that meter?
It was replaced in September.
September of last year?
Yes.
And you're still seeing active leaks.
And so, what is the current balance on that meter?
I'll update you. I just got that from telling he owes roughly $1 million.
On that?
Overall, the system.
Overall,
That's overall.
Not just that facility.
Okay. But-
No.
But for that facility?
You can get details.
Okay.
But their overall receivable.
it's about $1 million.
And how old is it? 90 days, 60 days?
No, I broke it out because I happened to have a meeting with the and brought up the issue.
It's in
Current-
our CFO report.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Anyways, yeah, so-
Just keep working on, because you're gonna have to.
Yeah,
you have to-
I brought this to her attention because they're working on a budget item that I said, you need to make sure that we get paid on this one.
Yeah,
and- they don't understand finances, the deputies, so that's a big issue for us.
Be-
Okay.
Before the CFO presents on the bond refunding, I just wanted to make one other point. Our AGMO, Tom Cruz, reminded me that for some of the, going back to the return lands and the federal properties that were returned, one of the issues that always causes further delays is that more often than not, a decision, an action to provide easements or anything requires representation by the administrators of estates. And in many cases, probates have not been open, and so that adds a complicating factor.
Yeah,
Thanks, Tom.
yeah.
Do your best, that's all you can do.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
All right.
I'm glad to see you were 36 seconds faster this past month for festival. Keep it up.
Good morning, everybody. In reviewing the financial statements, I noticed that the FY '23 year-to-date information is incorrect. So a lot of the comparisons need to be updated. So, but all the other information is correct. So if you're looking at FY '24,
So you're gonna update this and
and we'll
send it to
update it,
us?
right.
So 24
Well,
is good?
well, try to get it, yes, the 24 is
Prior
good.
years off a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll.
The month-to-date is correct. It's the year-to-date information that came in.
Just real quick, Tony, before you jump into the RBC report, I'm looking at board books on page 130, and it's glaring at me. The recent merchant services procurement is currently with the Office of the Attorney General for review.
Right, so we.
What does that mean?
Right, so what happened, we just got noticed, the beginning of this week, that what happened was they gave the AG, amount of time to review the contract and told them that if there wasn't any response that we were gonna move forward. So I understand that GPA procurement, who's leading this effort, is telling all the folks involved to move it. So it's GWA, GPA, and Solid Waste that are going to be participating in the merchant services agreement.
Oh, it's a tri-procurement?
Yeah.
Three entities, oh, interesting.
It's always.
Yes.
But everyone gets.
Everyone will get their own charges.
Let me
PO
just
system.
understand this.
Yes.
Notwithstanding AG's tantrums or whatever you want to call it, we're proceeding and moving forward.
The state law requires AG review for contracts is 5 GCA 5050.
That's
And
the
there,
famous number today.
and there he is only delegated as the legal advisor. So it's our duty to send over the contract for his review and then his duty to provide that service to be the legal advisor. So we sent a contract over for review, and we've sent numerous contracts for review that have been unanswered. We indicate in our transmitted letter to the AG that we are requesting the review be conducted in this amount of time, and then we ask for a response, and if the response doesn't come, if he doesn't perform the function to be our legal advisor, then we move forward, because the approval authority is, of course, management and the board. That's all communicated in writing to the AG.
Can you, would you be able to, any things are waiting, responded to?
We can provide a number of how many contracts we've sent over.
You mean it's not on his famous website?
I haven't seen it. I think it's in progress.
So, the details of that should be also the name procurement, the date we sent it to the AG's office, and do we give them a number of days, like 5 days?
We do, in our
Pursuant to the
transmittals.
latest law that we just got passed? I mean, that should be our standard number now, 5 days to review. You don't act within 5 days, thank you very much.
It depends on the contract. I don't think we've stuck with
No,
the
maybe
5
I'll
days.
rephrase my question. Moving forward, okay, given what we're all facing in this government with the tantrums of our AG, okay, because you're not going to stop GWA and GPA from doing its function, okay? So that maybe is the question I want to pose to the CCU. It says, let's be a leader in how we want to deal with our issues and not sit and wait for the court, for the legislature, okay? We have to function, okay? Unless you don't want to provide water and power, which I know we don't want to, I think it's incumbent on us to say, hey, you know, whatever you want to do beyond your understanding of what your legal role is today in this government, no. we as the CCU want to do this, therefore, I like what the legislature did for us. Okay, there's some issues, I was really shocked to read that they're concerned about conflicts of interest and you failed to notify us and this. I mean, that's gonna stop the procurement of temporary power. I was surprised. But, you know, notwithstanding what they said, we have to abide by what he's doing. But I'm gonna ask the commissioners, let's take the proper step in how we're gonna deal with this moving forward, because we're still waiting for the court, or at least I think we are, but how can we function? We're not here, again, I don't think we're here being elected members. We need to remind everybody, we're elected, we're not, like Doug, he's always, I'm elected. Okay, whatever that means. Okay, we're elected like him, so we'll make our own decisions here, and if you don't like it, take us to court. Okay, or write me a letter, write the chairman a letter, saying that you're out of line, or whatever new language they want to act that, you know, for us, the latest temporary agreement is that we forgot to include all the stuff that I thought was normally in an RFP. But again, Mr. Chairman, that is something I think if we can, let's put this matter, at least from the CCU end, to rest. Okay, we now have a policy on how we want to deal with the legal functions of the Attorney General of Guam. Okay? Yeah.
So the only other thing is maybe have management think about it and come back to us with, as we consider this policy. You know, some contracts may be a little more complicated, so if management says, we'll give you 10 days, 5 days,
I think what's
but I
going
like
to be
the
alarming,
idea.
Mr. Commissioner Sanchez, I'm going to bet good money. Some of these contracts have been there for a year.
No, I'm with you about setting a deadline.
I'm just setting,
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and feel sorry for the Attorney General. No. I mean, it's your job to go find attorneys to do contract review. He's more inclined to find forensic attorneys to investigate us, as opposed to the function of please review a contract so we can get merchant services. Okay? God help us if he's going to delay the contract review of buying fuel for our generators. I would love that scenario to come up. That, you know, I'm sorry, I don't want to review, but I don't want you to buy any more fuel to power our generators. Then we'll have a different story to go to court. But again, I think if we become more proactive in dealing with the Attorney General and whatever he believes his role to be, we need to do our job to give Miguel and John B. the tools that they need to do their job. So if we don't take a stand today, we're just going to be sitting here, you know, going, why are we here? So, Mr. Chairman, I would ask you to please, let's work with our attorneys and see if that's within our ask, right? Can we ask? I believe we can. Okay.
The CCU can set a policy
Yeah.
on, I guess, you know, the timeframe
Yeah.
for the AG to
respond.
review
Yeah.
and respond. They too have their policies. You know, the AG's role under 5150 to serve as legal advisor has a specific scope, and it's really to review as to legality and form. The enabling laws of both utilities allow only the CCU and the management that it designates to bind the authority of contract. That is not the AG's role. The AG's role is not to bind the authority. So the scope of the review, again, for the AG is to legality and form, and we have stated in our letters that even if the reviews are not timely, and if there are issues as to legality and form, we will address them.
Okay. Again, you know, this is very important because it's not just buying fuel, but if we have a merchant, what I heard you say is we're waiting for a review of the merchant agreement for both GPA and GWA and solid waste. Listen, if we can't charge and we can't bring the money in, the bondholders are gonna have a problem, you know? They're gonna say, wait a minute, you know, you guys stop playing the games. So I agree. We'll follow your policy, and if you need to make additional policy, propose it, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, where are we? Colleen, are you done?
No.
Oh, wait.
Hasn't started.
Sorry,
No.
unfortunately, let me read this stuff, so, you know, I saw that. So.
So
That's
anyway,
okay. I just, before I jump into the bond stuff, I just wanted to give you a couple of updates. The rate design petition to the PUC will be heard this month. It was tabled last month because they didn't have full attendance of their commissioners, and so it should be heard this month. And then the 5-year financial plan was submitted and posted in the paper, and that was done the following Friday, the March 8th.
So now we have a timeline, right? The timeline.
Clock is
Clock starts.
Good, okay, good. That's good news.
Okay.
Okay, so we just got this late last night, so we didn't have a chance to load it into board books. This was a presentation that was made by, presentation put together by RBC. I think by all measures, we had a successful refunding and tender. You might recall on February 13, we posted the POS and the investor package. We had a very high level of investor interest with over 70 unique investors looking at our roadshow, and we held 15 one-on-one calls with our investors. The tenders were closed on 2/28, and kind of a note of interest, we did get a call from one of the holders, Mackay, who typically would have held the bonds. That's kind of the nature of their business. But they said that if we were willing to negotiate on the pricing, that they would be willing to consider. And so we countered their offer and were able to come to a deal. And that's pretty much the 2020B, the taxable bonds. And so that really, added to the success of the process.
And if I can just
Sure.
point out one
Okay.
thing. On the 2020B taxable bonds, from my understanding, there would not be any other way for us to refund those types of bonds because of the nature of their taxable status. So the only way we could have done it was through this tender arrangement. And those bonds in themselves being tendered, I think, added about $9 million in gross savings to the overall deal. So by that measure, we would never have seen those savings otherwise. So from my perspective, it was very successful.
Very good. Very good.
On the 29th, we opened we opened the pricing. We got an oversubscription. We were able to go back and tighten the costs so that we could improve our savings. We had a few dropouts, but we were still oversubscribed by the time we ended up closing the deal. And so we had to allocate some of those.
I think at the close of the pricing period, we were 11.6 times oversubscribed, and that ranged for the different maturities from 4 times in one maturity to 26 times in other maturities. Overall orders at 2.some billion for a total of 180-some million in bonds. So very good results. The pre-pricing, before we opened the pricing period, we met with the underwriters and the desk to tighten up the spread versus the preliminary EMA notice that went out. And so they felt that was a good spread, but because of the oversubscription, after the period closed, during their negotiations with the calls, with the offerers, they tightened up the spreads to get us more favorable interest rates, and they were able to tighten it up on some maturities as much as 10 basis points, I think. So very aggressive pricing, but at the end, I think we were still 7 times oversubscribed. So
Especially on the longer
long
maturities.
So very good. We were concerned about RBC's performance, this being their first deal with us.
Yeah.
But I'd say they hit a home run. It was, very successful.
So we ended up with 21.1 million in cash flow savings, or 14.5 in present value, or 7.02%.
That's a great number.
I'm going to add, guys, because I did go and attend on behalf of the CCU. I want to give Miguel and Telling big time kudos from our side. and my observation, the RBC team was phenomenal in terms of their support, and just the guidance that they gave throughout this whole process that I watched. It was I think the one-on-one, for those of you that, I mean, I don't know, Peter, did you attend any with the airport ones? Yeah, so I think we all are very familiar with what goes on. But I think what strikes me most is the fact that the investor calls are from our current owners, I want to call them, right?
Yeah.
Mackay being the highest one. And the questions that are posed are very valid questions to the authority and what we're doing and what the future looks like for us. And they were very confident on what, Tulling and Miguel and the GITA team were saying about GWA, its performance, and the work that we're doing. And that is really great to hear on behalf of what we're doing here. I think what the public doesn't know is that what we did there is setting the benchmark now for GPA and the Airport Authority to go out and try to follow this, because there's a great savings. Obviously, we did fantastic on what we're going to give to the. I think what we need to know now, Miguel, is what we're going to do with the savings. Because we still have a lot of projects. I mean, obviously, 4 of us, and I think for us, it's tell us what we're going to do and what we're planning to do with all this. Not right now, it's okay. And I just think, from what we have done and what the future looks like, when we go out to do the roadshow and tell them why this 5-year plan is so important to us, is, the investors know what we're doing. So they show confidence, not even being on the ground, hearing what we're doing. So I think, kudos to you guys. Had lunch the other day with Tina and Antoinette. I haven't talked to David John. Mel was there. She did a fantastic job of telling the Guam story and what we're all going to be doing. So I think, again, thank you, Miguel and Tully. We did a great job. Okay, thanks, Chairman.
And I think, my guess is that this is another way that we're looking for every opportunity to mitigate the level of the rate adjustments that we're going to need to meet our requirements with US EPA. And, you two do a great job of looking for savings. So I think really the savings and the cash flow will help us, again, nibble away at that rate adjustment to just keep trying to bring it down as far as we can. That's why we do these refis. GPA hasn't had a base rate increase since 2013, but we do refis, and that's just what Commissioner Santos is talking about. Now that you two and the team have set a new benchmark for us, and excellent performance. I mean, usually we're seeing 3 or 4%. You guys got it to 7. Cash flow was fantastic, right? The net NPV is huge. Usually it's 5-7 million. This one's 14 million. All of that is the way management and your team, Miguel and Tolling, are working to find every way we can to reduce future rate adjustments, so that if we have to do a rate adjustments, it's going into infrastructure into the ground that really serve our ratepayers best, as opposed to our friendly lenders, our bondholders. God bless them. They're willing to loan us the money and do it this way, and in a very successful refi. So all those little things contributed. I'm with Commissioner Santos. It'd be nice to say, well, 21 million and your rate's going to go down, 7-9%. It doesn't work like that. But it's incremental. All these little pieces of, like anyone that's had to refinance in their own personal life, one reason you refinance is to improve your cash flow, which will help you balance your budget or not have to earn more money, because your costs are more affordable. So it's all.
So when we prepared the 5-year plan, we did work some savings in, certainly not at the level that we accomplished, so we'll be going back to.
Oh, so if you can actually identify how much additional savings or what savings on the rate side, I mean, again, I imagine it's such a small number. Then Maria is going to go, is it $5? But whether it's 50 cents or $1.80 or 36 more seconds, I mean, you're working very hard to do everything you can to improve the situation for our ratepayers, and in this case, you save them money on a going forward basis, significant amounts of money on a going forward basis.
Go ahead.
I just would reiterate on that point of trying to save money. The big, where it will really make a difference is if we are able to provide alternative capital financing strategies. Short-term borrowing, commercial paper type programs, that if we have the authority to do that, that will really help us mitigate the rate increases. The other thing I would note is that in our discussions, not only with the investors who were very interested in, you know, what are we facing down the road? Everybody, they're aware of what happens in the water industry, the utility industry, so they're aware of the challenges with emerging contaminants and so on and so forth. So our responses to that and how we have laid out our plans in the 5-year rate plan when we presented it to them in the one-on-one calls, they were very encouraged by our with the fact that we're being proactive about addressing it. In terms of the rating agencies, the rate support is a critical issue for them in how they rate us and whether they could, you know, further improve our ratings to lower our borrowing costs. That is a factor. You know, is the rate support there, number one? And number two, another item that they noted, which was surprising to me, was the level of investment in the infrastructure renewal, I thought was problematic. You know, I was worried about presenting, you know, this is a lot of money that we're going to be putting into the ground. They actually said that's a credit positive because systems that don't reinvest in their infrastructure, they worry about more and they consider more of a credit risk.
They're more at risk.
Yeah, I think we're doing the right things and we're
No, we
presenting
are.
the right
We are.
message.
Yeah.
We just hope that we get the same type of support from the PUC and the legislature.
I just want to add
Go ahead.
also the fact that $2.14 billion in orders for 39, that's, you know, I mean, there's a lot in, we can almost go there pretty soon. But the other thing also is, I just want to add on to Francis, thanking Gita and the governor's office for their team effort
Yes.
with you guys.
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez.
So, Miguel, can you also update us? I know you've had some preliminary conversations with Senator Perez about introducing the legislation that's needed now for the next, really to fund the 5-year plan from a borrowing point of view. And I saw her briefly when I was down there. She said she was meeting with you. How's that going? We going to introduce the bill? Are we going to get 10? Or is she comfortable with the additional tool of tax exempt commercial paper?
I think she is, and Chris can add to this, but we did have a meeting, 2 meetings with her, and we've updated the draft legislation based on some of her input, based on the board's input, and I think that was transmitted.
Yeah, so the bill was sent out last week, and
The revised bill.
the revised bill, and I'll be meeting with her this week to answer any questions she has, and hopefully we're hoping it'll be introduced, if not this week, then next week.
What's the total borrowing requested?
780 million.
Okay, and that's for the next 5-year.
Based on the current structure, right?
5-year.
So,
And is the TECP in that legislation, or is it
Yes.
required to be separate?
No.
She's okay with combining it, right? Because sometimes they go, subject matter, right? But, I mean,
Totally.
you're also setting the stage for the rest of the agencies to look at TECP as an alternative to capitalized interest. And there are huge savings, and as you've pointed out, the availability of TECP could reduce our proposed rate increase significantly. I think it was like almost 30%, something at that magnitude, if the legislature will help us help our ratepayers by passing Senator Perez's legislation. So again, all good things, you know, going in the right direction. And yeah, it's a challenge for our ratepayers on the spend side. But having said that, we're about to put we put $1 billion in the ground in the last 20 years, and Miguel's planning to put another 750, you know, in the ground in the next 5 to 7, 8 years, and that's all good. I think the only thing is, don't tell US EPA that every time they give us a list, the rating agencies are happy that we're putting it into the ground, because they keep adding to the list. Notice.
The nature of life.
Can we stop building the house? Isn't it done yet?
You're always maintaining the house.
Yeah, well, now we're still fixing the house, I
Yeah.
think. That's a good list, though. Yeah, Then we'll
okay.
get on the maintenance, but all good,
Okay,
very good, very good.
anything else that we have? Miguel, are you
Good.
done? Tully,
Good.
are you done? Okay. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr.
Mike, do you have
Great
any
job.
questions?
Great job. I'll turn on Mike's.
Yeah, no, Mr. Chair, no questions. Good job, Miguel and Colleen.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, so, motion to adjourn? Oh, wait, Oh, wait, yeah, good, I'm sorry. That's why we have board secretary, to remind us of these things. Okay, so, I need a motion to rise up.
Mr. Chair, I move to rise out of regular session and move into executive session.
Okay, second, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay, motion carries. Okay, 5 minutes. we have another idiot who's getting in our way. I mean, you know, we don't need any more headaches. We got plenty. And they're valid headaches. His is a